Some disciplines, such as the history of science and the sociology of science, also study science. The history of science is interested in questions about the origins of the sciences, how discoveries have been made, and so on. The sociology of science is especially interested in the organizations and human interactions within scientific communities. Philosophy of science studies science, obviously enough, from a philosophical perspective. It tries to analyze and understand what the subject is by asking and trying to answer philosophical questions about the subject. One of the big questions it tries to answer is simply, what is science? What distinguishes science from other ways of thinking, other activities, and other traditions? And what similarities does it have with them? How is science different from or similar to religion, for example? How about philosophy? Is philosophy a science, or is all science also philosophy? Science is sometimes confused with technology. Technology can also be called applied science, which, as the name implies, is not traditionally considered science proper, but rather the application of scientific knowledge in technology. But that is just a traditional view, and the relationship between the sciences and the applied sciences is actually much more intertwined. In the more distant past, technology enabled the advance of science through the use of things like water clocks and steam engines. But more recently, science has become more and more important for advances in technology because of the discoveries of electricity, quantum mechanics, the theory of relativity, the analysis of chemical elements, and so on. Especially modern physics, I understand, is very difficult to separate from the applied sciences. Still, applied sciences are generally practiced in their own institutions, such as universities of applied sciences. Also, there are conceptual, analytical reasons to think of science and technology as separate things. For example, science is merely the pursuit of knowledge. How or if that knowledge is used is not a matter of science. But technology is the application of knowledge. So by using the knowledge in various applications, engineers already make the choice and the commitment to use the knowledge. That in itself may be of some ethical concern. The word science comes from the Latin word for knowledge, scientia. The English word connotes specifically natural science, but in other languages the connotation can be broader. The Finnish tiede, Swedish vetenskap, and German Wissenschaft all mean all kinds of academic scholarship, research, and study. This is the broader understanding of the term science that I am using here. A common categorization of the different branches of science may be helpful here. In this understanding, the sciences include formal sciences, natural sciences, and human sciences, which in turn are divided into humanities and social sciences. Divisions like this are typically seen in the organization structures of universities, but there may be overlap as well. I will now explain what is meant by these categories. The formal sciences include fields like formal logic, arithmetic, and geometry. The subjects they study are purely formal, abstract. They may be completely divorced from the actual reality of the world around us, which is what the natural sciences work with. Unlike the formal sciences, the natural sciences are empirical and seek to find out what reality is actually like and how it works through observations and experiments. They include fields like physics, chemistry, and biology. The formal sciences are more interested in how the logical concepts work and what kind of different mathematical systems can be devised. Those might actually be useful in describing some aspect of our reality, and so be useful to physics, for example, but they also might not. The social sciences and humanities both study humanity, but in slightly different ways. The humanities include fields like history, linguistics, and academic philosophy, while the social sciences include fields like sociology, economics, and political science. The latter are focused on how societies work, while the former are more, or perhaps more, broadly interested in cultures. Human sciences focus on trying to explain events and phenomena through human understanding, while natural sciences look for causal explanations for the phenomena they study. The object of study is more complicated in human sciences because the human mind and societies made up of humans are so complicated. This leads to more disparate views among human sciences and more uncertainty. The relationship between the researcher and the thing being studied is also different. Human sciences are more limited in what kind of experiments they can perform, as these would be done on humans. But unlike natural sciences, human sciences can also use surveys and interviews to gain information. The work of the researcher in human sciences itself can actually change the subject, such as individual people or societies. In fact, one important goal of social science is to improve society. It is quite the opposite of the classical attitude of natural scientists who wish to remain detached from what they study. This categorization is not to be taken too seriously, because some fields of study, such as archaeology, anthropology, and psychology, may be difficult to classify according to it. It's not only that placing them in one or the other subcategory of human sciences, social sciences or humanities, may be difficult, but they also have aspects common with the natural sciences. There are also fields that are science clusters, where a new field of science is created by combining parts of other sciences. For example, cognitive science and social psychology were formed like that. Such fields may be even more difficult to lump into any one of the categories in this classic categorization. While this categorization may have proven problematic, it is not completely useless. Philosophers of science may try to come up with better versions to bring out differences and similarities between different fields of science. The criteria and definitions they come up with when analyzing different sciences may be of more use, at least in explaining what science actually is, how it works, and what scientists do as scientists, which is what I'm going to talk about in the next video. See you then.